Thank you very much, Ros. Yes, hi everybody. Hope you can all hear me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It is really wonderful to have you here with us. My name is Ishbel McWha-Hermann and I'm a faculty member at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. I also lead the Decent Work stream of the EAWOP Impact Incubator, as Ros has mentioned, and it's in this capacity that I'm here with you today. It is my really great pleasure to introduce this exciting new resource which we've been developing through the incubator, our animation about living wages. So next slide, please, Ros. Thank you. So a bit of insight first about what decent work is and why it's included as one of the 5 themes of the incubator. Decent work is a term coined by the International Labour Organization, and it focuses on work which meets fundamental needs for material well-being, economic security, equal opportunities, and scope for human development. It therefore has a clear connection with work psychology, which in a very broad sense focuses on improving the well-being and performance of people and the organizations that employ them. Much of work psychology is focused on how to create healthy and thriving workplaces, and it has much to contribute to the ways that work can be and can remain decent. One of the key areas of the decent work agenda is creating work that is productive and delivers a fair income. So here a focus on wages fits very well within this scope. Now, alongside the ILO's decent work agenda is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which the world has signed up to achieve by 2030. SDG 8.5 is particularly relevant here, and it states that by 2030 we will achieve full and productive employment and decent work for all women and men, including for young people and persons with disabilities, and equal pay for work of equal value. So it's about decent work and it's about fair pay. And through the EAWOP Impact Incubator, we're thinking about what work psychology can contribute to this goal. Next slide, please. So we focus on living wages within the decent work stream as one potential path to enabling workers to thrive. Evidence suggests that minimum wage levels still fail to lift workers from poverty, resulting in growing calls for a higher living wage that can actually meet the real costs of living. The living wage shifts beyond a minimum wage to include a wage which provides an improved quality of life and clearly links with the concept of decent work. It's usually defined as enabling meaningful participation in society beyond mere survival. So this includes things like activities such as recreation, supporting the family, saving financially. EAWOP's support of living wage research began in 2019 with a small group meeting, drawing together living wage scholars and policymakers from across Europe and beyond to talk about the critical challenges and the evidence-based insights on living wages, and in particular on the psychological perspectives of living wages. Next slide, please. Now, of course, one of the main reasons we're here today is to celebrate the launch of the living wage animation. Our goal in developing this animation was to provide simple and easy access to current work psychology research on living wages. And we really wanted to make sure that the animation would work across different languages, countries, and cultures. So we've developed it in a way that ensures it can easily be translated into other languages. We'll shortly be adding Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Mandarin, and we aim to continue to add new languages. If you're interested in translating it into your own language, please get in touch with us. We already have an offer to work on a Filipino translation, and we would love to have many more languages available. The animation will be freely available on the EAWOP Impact Incubator website, where you can access it freely for use in your own work. Next slide, please. So to help build the suspense just a little bit more before we see the animation, I thought I'd give you a bit of background to the research that sits behind it. It's based off a narrative review of research on living wages, which was published at the end of last year. The paper is available open access through the European Journal of Work and Organisational Psychology website. It had 2 main aims. So first of all, to look at how living wage research has changed over time, both in terms of how the concept itself is conceptualized, but also how it's been studied and measured. And then the second aim was to identify the key issues, trends, and gaps emerging from the literature so that we can guide future research and particularly work psychology research. So this is a review of 115 papers studying living wages published between 2000 and 2020. it was an interdisciplinary review, so it wasn't limited to work psychology at all. It drew on many different areas of study, and it really looked for where and how work psychology has and can contribute to our understanding of living wages. Next slide, please. Firstly, in terms of tracking the development of research over time, so looking at where and how living wage research has been undertaken, what we see really is a broadening of the consideration of living wages. So early on, you can see on the left side of this graph, you can see a kind of predominantly economic and macroeconomic focus. So this is looking at things like modelling the impact of living wages on poverty levels within communities and tracking costs for employers. But what you can see there on the right-hand side of the graph is that this shifted in later years, and you can see just a broader range of disciplines looking at living wages. And this is really great because it provides new perspectives on living wages and new ways of measuring the living wage. The other thing that we identified in the review was a change in context, so where it's being studied. Early research was very much focused in the US, and then extended to other Anglophone higher income countries. But since the mid-2010s, we've also started to see studies emerging from lower income country contexts as well. So all in all, this increasing diversification is really helpful for developing a fuller understanding of living wages. Of course, the paper itself gives a lot more detail about the specific aspects that have been studied, and there are 5 main areas of research that we identified as having been looked at. I'm not going to go into that now, though, in the interest of time. Next slide, please, Ros. So where does work psychology fit within the existing literature? Well, a particular contribution from work psychology is around this shift in focus from an employer focus to a more person-centric focus. In other words, looking at how to measure the impact of living wages on the person actually earning it. Emerging work psychology research has enabled a clearer consideration of living wages for individual employees and their families. It looks beyond these kind of macroeconomic issues to focus on worker well-being and quality of life. And we know that these types of issues have important consequences for organizations as well. It also contributes to a deeper understanding of how living wages contribute to decent work, looking at things like how to measure it and how to track these concepts over time. So all in all, a work psychology perspective provides linked up evidence for the impact of living wages on individuals, on organizations, and also on societies. Next slide, please. So last thing from me is to mention some exciting future plans for the Incubator's work on living wages. We're planning a couple of events, including a panel discussion during Living Wage Week in November and a symposium at the EAWOP conference in January. We're also developing a serious game in collaboration with some games developers, which we hope will bring to life the value of a living wage for individual employees as well as their organisations. And we have a special issue showcasing research on living wages, which is forthcoming and will hopefully be out later this year.